You are listening to Changes Big and Small. This is Damian, your host, as we explore what makes change exhilarating. Each episode, we'll meet one person who's found freedom by embracing change. Today I'm chatting with Annie Koshy. Annie is an award-winning media professional, a multi-talented media and events personality, a trained elite speaker, and an MC. She also is a model, and she's garnered mainstream attention through her commercial work. She is one of the stars in the documentary A Bloody Mess, which will be released next year. In our conversation today, Annie and I talk about the many significant changes she's made in her life, including finding and prioritizing her passions. This involved preparation, planning, and sacrifice. Annie advises us how we can make changes in our own life with faith, determination, and grace. Her story is inspirational, and her words of wisdom are steeped in experience and cultural diversity. Let's get started. Annie, if you could please start off by telling us where were you born, where you live now, and what do you do that pays the bills?
Okay, well, I was born in a small town in South India in the state of Tamil Nadu, and I lived there till I was about 4.5, 5 years, and then we migrated to the US. I joined my family there. They had already migrated. And then in around the early 70s, we moved from the US to Canada, and I'm located now in a city just outside of the city of Toronto called Brampton. And what do I do? Well, a number of things that I do, Damian, ranging really under the field of media, but I'm an international model actress and I'm a professional photographer. And so those are the two things that I think I'm pretty much focusing on right now. But I also have a media company that I promote and support people who are in the arts, entertainment, and media industries here in Toronto. So that's in a nutshell what I do.
Thank you. I know Annie because we met in India many years ago. And in that time, Annie, you've seemed to have learned how to do so many things. I actually started this podcast because it's one of my favorite ways to learn, by listening to podcasts. What do you do when you want to learn something new?
Well, it's funny you say that, Damian, and it's funny how quickly and rapidly time goes by. And yeah, what do we do to learn? I think learning for me has been the one reason that I've remained sane all my life, is that wanting to know more or wanting to understand the environment around me and wanting to master it has been something that's been the driving force. I had to very quickly learn how to become an ESL teacher. And so while I was teaching it, I was also training. And what normally would take over a year to do, 1 to 2 years to do, I completed it in 6 months. And so that drive to push myself to be the best has been there for a long time. And I see that allowed me to really move from here in Toronto, in Canada, to a place in India that I didn't know very much about.
What are some of the ways that you figure out how to do something new when it might not have originally been your field?
One of the biggest helps now has been Google, because everything is available on the web. And so there's so much information out there. It's just a matter of sitting down and finding time, and also finding out the things in the way that you learn best, because even with all that information, it sometimes can be very daunting to wade through it all and find what's relevant. And the second thing that I made sure that I had was that I surrounded myself with mentors or people who played the game better than myself. And I always felt that in any sport, if you want to improve your game, the best way to do that is to play with someone who's better than yourself, because then you're able to step up the game a little bit. So I always had people around me who either knew their things better or I could learn from, or who were great mentors and who took me under their wings to show me some of the ropes on how to do stuff. That's not enough, Damian. It has to be that you have an inner drive or a spark within you to want it, that desire. is the most important catalyst for any of these things to work. Because you have knowledge, there's knowledge in front of everyone. Why doesn't everyone then just start acquiring knowledge? It's because they don't have that desire. And so it has to be a combination of mentorship, desire to learn, and then putting yourself to learn in the right situation, either through an academic approach, through standardized schooling, or through your own self-learning, which there's ample resources for.
It's like you're reading my mind, Annie, because the whole reason I started this podcast was because I'm so curious what motivates people to change. And we can see all around us that some people will have that drive and will make those changes, whereas other people will simply complain about things but don't actually make any change. For you, who has been able to make so many changes, what do you believe about change?
Change is inevitable. And when you resist change, that's when you either begin to stagnate or you get yourself stressed. Not that you have to be resigned to change, but when you look at change as being positive and not negative, then the impact of change changes in its entirety. For me, change happened very rapidly in India when I was there, even in the teaching field. And you're right. How do you go from being someone, I was trained as an early childhood educator, that's basically teaching kindergarten or nursery and younger. And I ended my teaching career in India having been teaching IB English for grade 6 to grade 10 and being the personal project supervisor for almost 4 or 5 years to grade 10 students, and also being the approaches to learning lead teacher in one of the most prestigious international schools at the time in India. How do you go from that to then moving into the realm of database management? I was a database administrator. And it brings a smile to my face because I remember asking you silly questions, I think, about tech support. And now one of the awards that I received from one of the organizations I worked with was because I was their tech support. They used to come to me for questions. And it brings a smile to my face because I remember being in that same position and asking you for help.
And that brings a smile to my face too, because it's one of my fundamental beliefs that people can learn how to do different things. And so
yeah,
you're definitely an example of that.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons why I resonated with you while I was even there in India is because we were both out of our element. We were both in situations that were new. And I remember very clearly a trip that we took to the Coorg. And none of us had any idea about that place. But we had this spirit to learn, and we had this willingness to let someone else take a lead when we didn't know. And so, you planned our trip for where we were going to go, but if we saw something on the way that we wanted to try, everyone in the group was willing to give that a try. And that attitude, that open-mindedness of being able to go with the flow really has been one of the key indicators of whether you're going to be able to handle stress and handle change and take it in stride. Because change really is about just going with the flow. And sometimes the flow doesn't always go the way you had it planned. So being able to, for example, you've had experiences where you've decided to cook something and you follow the recipe and the end product has ended up to be different. It's not bad, but it's been different, right? And so you're looking at the picture of what it's supposed to look like, and you're looking at your piece of art, which may not look the same, but it tastes fine and you're proud of your creation. And so going with the flow may not always end up the way you thought it was going to be. But if you always look at every change as being a positive change, even in a negative situation, then that's a spin that helps you to get on with life, really.
That's so true. That mindset really does affect how we go about encountering change, or even whether we're graceful in change or not. With that, I'm going to ask you, what is the biggest change that you've chosen to make in your life?
I think the biggest change that I chose to make in my life was to live a life for myself. I decided to end a long-term relationship, and that was, I think, the change. There were certain circumstances that led to that change to occur as it did. And I think when all of those circumstances aligned themselves, change was inevitable. And I had to make that change. I think when you reach a certain point in your life, Damien, it is your own voice in your head, that voice that you hear when you're sleeping at night or about to sleep at night, that asks you, are you living your life to the fullest? Are you living your life with integrity, not to others, but to yourself? And I started realizing that I was not happy with how things were going, the way my life was shaping up, and the way I wanted to see the next decade or 2 decades or the remaining amount of life that I have. I started to see that I had been towing my life to everyone else's line and everyone else's expectation. And I'd been putting what I wanted to do aside. And so one of the key changes for me that happened, and really that has prompted and fueled the growth in the last 4 years to where I am today, was to put my creative side in the forefront. And that has been really the most significant change in the last decade that I would say that I have made.
That's a very fascinating thing, because I think both of us come from cultures where there are certain expectations, and it's not very easy to move away from those expectations, or to even stop and think, what am I choosing to do right now? And what is it that I want to do right now? And
Yeah.
even separating that from expectation, just the separation alone, the first step of stopping and finding that clarity, can be incredibly difficult. When you decided to make that change, what were some of the challenges that you faced?
Oh, there were numerous challenges. I think that we are constantly evolving as people. And one of the biggest changes that I see myself today that I didn't have then was self-confidence. If I knew all the things that I have to go through to get to where I am today, I don't know if I would have had the courage. Perhaps I had a sense of courage then to even make the change in the first place. But losing friends or family that I had been used to, losing the sense of routine, everything that was familiar around me, and really going through fire. That right now I can say that who I am today has been tempered through that fire. You don't realize how strong you are, Damien, until you have nothing but your strength to rely on. You don't realize how much you want something until that one thing is what fuels you every day. I didn't realize how much I believed in my dream of what I'm doing in media until I went through all the steps to get to where I am today. I remember, whether it was when I was in India learning dance, like we did that stomp dance.
You did. I
It
watched.
was something that I had never, ever expected. There's a half-hour video, very grainy, of our initial practices. And I cringe when I see myself. I look at how I was moving in those initial practices. And then I look at 2 years later at a finished performance, which was about 20 minutes, but where we had all choreographed it. And it looked amazing. And I'm thinking, wow, in 2 years, to go from a group of people, group of young women really, except for that one gentleman who had joined us, to go from a group that had never danced together, never performed together, to be able to perform not just on one stage, but multiple venues, and to be able to raise money through our dance performances. That's one example. But then I think back to when I picked up my first paintbrush in 2000. No experience. I just had this desire in me to create something artistic. And I sat down and painted. And those paintings have then subsequently gone on to be sold. And moving from Bangalore to Pune, I didn't have a full-time job. I didn't have a surety of a place to live. I went to cover 3 months for someone's maternity leave. But I went with hope, and I went with a desire that whatever it is that I'm doing, I want to get my foot in the door. And once I get my foot in the door, Damien, that's it. I know I'm a force to reckon with. And that was exactly what happened. Within 10 days of me arriving, they came and saw me teaching one of my classes, and they're like, we don't know what you're going to be doing, but we're hiring you full time. that is faith. That's faith in your own ability. That's faith in your ability to make a positive out of any negative. So that attitude has really been the fuel for change.
Annie, one of the things I've always appreciated and always admired about you is your attitude of, I can do this. I'm going to figure out how to do this and I'm going to get it done. But I've seen the other side of
Yes.
that too, where I know that public persona, that face, there is definitely that strong sense of faith of I am
Yes.
going to get it done. But there's also that little
Yes.
demon sometimes in the back of the head, or that fear that's also a
You're
natural
absolutely
part.
right.
How do you deal with that part of maybe you can't do this, or that fear that taps you on the shoulder every once in a
I used
while?
to succumb myself to that fear, Damien, and I would let it control me. I would let fear control me, and I would let my insecurities take a hold of me, and I wouldn't be able to move forward. And I think that was the fear of change that took place for decades before I decided to move ahead on my own. That niggling voice still exists, but I crush it. The minute that I have a doubt about something, the minute that I feel there is a moment of second thought, then I immediately switch it off. Think of it like this. In your mouth, if you have a tooth or you had a molar removed and you have stitches there, you know it's there. You know the ache is there. Every so often, your tongue goes and touches that spot and you feel a twinge of pain or a great deal of pain. But what do? You move your tongue away immediately and you avoid going to that area. I think we all have areas of pain in our life. We wouldn't be who we are. I wouldn't be able to have the amount of compassion and love for people that I do and the ability to understand that I have if I hadn't experienced pain or tragedy or loss
Mm,
in my life. And because I have experienced it, I have a greater capacity to receive other people's, but also to be able to understand other people.
mm,
I surround myself with people who lift me up now. I have this tendency to be an empath or someone who's a healer, and I have a natural ability to attract people to myself. Having said that, I also have an ability to attract people who are not good for me to myself. And
mm,
so, what's changed now, which wasn't there before, was the ability to discern whether the things and the people that I am attracting to me are helping grow me. And if they're not helping to grow me, I really don't have the time any longer to cater to that. And so I'm very, very careful about the energy that I surround myself with because
mm,
I have very limited headspace or headroom for anything that is detracting me from my ultimate goal or my ultimate purpose and my own growth, right? I feel that if you are balanced within yourself, if you are at peace within yourself, that resonates so high in frequency that other people are drawn to that and they themselves are able to resonate with a balance and a frequency that brings peace to their lives.
It sounds like you've been able to go on a journey where you've been able to figure out what you need to do to keep the focus that you want, to be able to accomplish the things that you want in your life. When you look at all of the changes that you've made, do you see a through line? How do those changes connect?
I almost look at it like stepping stones in a lake, or when you're trying to cross this river and there are stepping stones and you step on each one and you bounce off that one and you go on to the next one. And if you remove one, there's a space and you fall. So you need each of those stones, but as each of the stones are not really connected to each other, they have their own little beginning and end. And so each stage of my life has taught me skills and helped temper me in some way so that I'm able to reach that next level. Had I not gone through the good, the bad, the struggles, the tears, the insecurities, all of those negative things, I would not have had the appreciation for the positive that's happening in my life right now, right? I would not have had the appreciation for friends that stood up for me and friends that had my back. Each of these moments, I think, have been important to lead to who I am today. You cannot fast forward life and you cannot fast forward experiences. Neither can you look back at what happened and worry about it, cry about it, mope about it. You have to live for today. And that is the biggest lesson that I've learned, is that I'm not really worried about tomorrow. There is some, every so often, a thought, okay, where am I heading? I have an overall idea in mind, but I'm not worried about what's tomorrow going to bring? Or, gosh, I did this last week. That happened. I shouldn't have. No, I look at it as, okay, this happened. This didn't go well. Okay, this is what I'm going to change about it. Well, this went well. And wow, I learned this and I had a great time doing this. Okay, so this is what we're going to change and we're going to revamp it and do this the next time. So that's my attitude about everything.
You're actually reminding me of another interview that I did with Kim Kofino, and she talked about how she looks at the things that she needs to do as a puzzle that she needs to solve. And also every day she knows that she's doing the thing that she needs to get done that day.
Right.
And so it really sounds like being grounded in the present and focusing on what can I do today? What do I need to do today? And getting it done.
You know, I think at the beginning of this summer, I photographed every single international main Bollywood star that had come, or main actor, any festivals, any events that happened. I was one of the key photographers for a lot of it. At the end of the summer, I think I had around 2,500 photographs to edit. And it was a very daunting task. I still have a great number of them still to go through. But how do I deal with it? Well, whatever puts food on my table, whatever I've been paid for, that gets done first. So priority right now is always what is putting food on my table, or what is bringing me income. Then what is it that I enjoy doing that is also going to promote? So I'm my own brand specialist. So one of the things that I always do and every day I work at is making sure that something is out there with relation to my work. If I say that I can market someone else, I need to show them how I'm able to market myself. And so I have to be my biggest brand ambassador. I'm very lucky now that I have someone on my team now who does all of my PR work. I never imagined, Damien, that someone would reach out to me and say, I'd like to manage you. I have an agency that deals with all of my modeling work. And so they put out all of the things for me for auditions and whatnot, and let me know when I need to show up at some place with what I need to do. I never imagined that I would have that. I have a team that surrounds me with tech support for my events, with front of the house people who manage all of my inquiries as well as attendance and checking guests in, etc. I have artists that are willing to perform on stage for the work that I do. This all happened not because of my own strength. It's because you surround yourself with the people that resonate with the same ideologies, with the same vision, with the same vibe that you have. When you do that, you start seeing things falling in place. I never went in with the intention to make money. When I meet someone or when I do something for an organization, thinking, what am I going to get out of it? I'm always thinking, what can I give to them? And when you have a mind of giving and a heart of giving, you don't need to worry about where tomorrow is going to come from. Tomorrow happens on its own then.
That's beautiful, Annie. I was listening to some of your other interviews, and you talked about the importance of how people can change weaknesses into strengths. And I think that relates to what you're talking about here, where you can actually count on the collective strength of your community, not just on your own abilities.
Yes, that makes much more sense. So being the CEO of my own company, if I had my hands in every aspect, then when I bring people on board on my team, if I don't allow them to run with it, then I'm not being a very good example of what a good mentor or a good CEO is about. I think when you're running a company, you hire people or you bring people on board that you can then trust. You train them in what you want. You may have a certain voice or a certain mission, vision of your company that you want them to resonate with. And then you let them go and you let them do their thing. and let them create. And then you support them and encourage them and grow them. And before you realize it, Damien, they're going to be doing things not because they're doing it for you, but because they have a vested interest in what it is that they're doing. And they will do it because it's for them. And when you start building people up to the point where they feel vested in what it is that they're involved with, then you have got an awesome team around you.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, building people up and encouraging them to be the best in themselves. And, there are moments where you do have to manage them in certain ways. But if they understand that when you set your own bar up high, you're not sitting behind a desk saying, I want you to do this, I want you to go there, I want you to be like this or whatever, but you're on the ground level and actually doing it and being a prime example of how to be, then they themselves will step up the game.
Annie, I want to respect your time. And so this conversation can go on forever, but I'm going to ask you a few more questions to finish up. What advice do you have for someone who wants to make a change in their life, but are feeling a bit stuck? What would you suggest as a first step?
One of the first things to do is to look at where you want to go at the end and not be intimidated by that spot, but start with small little steps. And so the first change is to just have the thought to want to make the change. The second one would be to make one small step towards doing that change. So, for example, you want to learn how to swim. Well, one of the first things would be not to look at an Olympic swimmer and say, oh my gosh, I can never be that. But the first step perhaps would be just to maybe find out what are the pools near my house, or what are the times that there is swimming available near me. And what day of the week would that fit into my schedule? Can I change my schedule? Oh, yeah, I can. Well, let me try one class and see how it is, right? And so the change doesn't have to be, I have to become an Olympic swimmer, but the change can be, I have to change my schedule to think about the fact that I might want to go swimming this week one time, right? And that one time leads to hopefully a positive experience, or positive enough to want to do that again. And very soon that one time will lead to maybe doing it 2 or 3 times. And then perhaps you've developed a habit. When you start doing things again and again and again, you start developing a habit. And when you have a habit, you start realizing that you've made a change. So change doesn't happen just because you think of the change. Change happens through a series of small steps that you make. And those steps are well thought out steps. So starting with that first step is very, very important.
That's also good advice. I could also try out different pools or different teachers. And I think it's a good thing to remember that, yes, trying the first time, the first small step is important. And where you have the experience might matter. And so even if the first time you try something, it's not a resounding success, there might be another way or a different small step or something you can tweak slightly that could help you have a positive experience the next time.
We all have challenges. We all have moments, even myself, every single day, where something upsets me or something bothers me. But it's up to you to determine whether you're going to let that moment affect you for what? 5 minutes, 2 minutes, an hour, half a day, a full day, go to bed with it upset and you're not sleeping well. It really is up to you, not to that person or that situation. You are in control of what you allow to affect you. And when you learn that big point, then everything else in life starts to become a lot easier to handle.
I think that's so true. Is there anyone that inspires you with change? You talked before about mentors. Do you have a go-to source?
I do. I have several people in my life that constantly encourage me, have constantly stood by me. I would like to say that Satish Verma of Think and Grow Rich Institute has been one of my key guides, who has told me to pull up my socks and get on with it, sort of thing, with no nonsense attitude. He's been there as one of the biggest supports. the philosophy of Think and Grow Rich has really been instrumental in changing how I view things. I would like to also say that there are some very, very close friends that have been around me that have been instrumental in ensuring that in my moments of weakness, I have a safety net around me. I think that's been one of the biggest challenges, Damian, is as a public personality and someone who is out there in the public as a media personality here in Toronto, we can't always share our tragedies. We can't always share our weaknesses out there. And so there is a part that's hidden from the public eye just so that I have something that's personal. But there are folks in my life who know what my challenges are and who have been there for me through thick and thin and who I can open up and unburden myself. And I think that's very important, is to find people around you who support you, who are there for you unconditionally, and who are your fortresses when you need a place of refuge.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we end this conversation? Is there something that I missed?
I'm very lucky, Damien, and I'm very grateful and blessed. And I want to thank, my Lord, really, my faith, for having given me all the blessings in my life that I have received this year. 2019 has been a very pivotal year for me. And I would say that there's lots to come. This is just the beginning, but my film, A Bloody Mess, is going to be out in theaters in 2020. This is a short film that I was a lead character. A documentary film on my life is being done right now, and we're still in the process of filming, and that's happening. I'm very grateful that I escaped a very, very harrowing experience just 3 short weeks ago that could have changed my life irreversibly, and that didn't happen. I'm also very happy to have very special people in my life who make every single day a joy to be, had and experienced. So yes, including yourself, we've remained in touch. It's not easy to remain in touch in a long distance relationship with people who have very busy lives. You have to make the effort, and it's nice to know that we continue to make an effort to be a part of each other's lives. So I'm grateful to that.
Annie, that's such a beautiful way to end our conversation. There is so much research now that shows how important gratitude is for living a healthy life, for good mental health. Actually, it's one of the things that I'm trying to incorporate more into my own life. And I would like to say thank you for joining me today in this conversation as well. And I am grateful that you've made space to have this conversation today and to catch up when I'm in Toronto.
But it is really my honor, Damien, because I was completely humbled when I received your message that you wanted to do a podcast. And I'm just hoping, and I know that someone listening to our words of encouragement, of hope, of understanding, that message of hope and encouragement will resonate with those who need to hear that message. And so thank you so much for the honor for allowing me to share my thoughts with you and your listeners.
Definitely. The pleasure is completely mine. And to end up, where can people follow you or connect with you? What's your preferred method?
You can find me on Instagram under 2 handles. It's Annie, ANNIEJKOSHY, as well as my company page on Instagram, which is GTA South, SOUTH, Asian Media Network. So that's GTA South Asian Media Network. That's on Instagram. And on Facebook, you can find my personal page under Annie Koshy, but would probably find it easier to follow my company pages. You can follow me at GTA South Asian Media Network or Annie J. Koshy Media Consultant or Lava Lounge or under my photography page, Annie J. I know it's a lot, but I manage 4 pages that have different aspects of the different components of my work.
We'll put all of that in the show notes and your go-to site as well, which I saw had some links to some of those social media accounts also.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Annie. You can find all the links for connecting with Annie in the show notes. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Changes Big and Small. For more great episodes like this one, don't forget to hit subscribe in your favorite podcast app. This will let you automatically download new episodes every week. Today I leave you with this thought. Is there something that has always been interesting to you, but you've kept it aside because of your culture or because of your community? Maybe it's time for you to explore that.